Hi, Dr. Chris here. Welcome, and thanks for joining in on this three-part video series. If you haven't seen the first two videos, I suggest you start there because the concepts build on each other, and it's important to have a good understanding of those concepts as we progress along through these videos. Now, the first video was referencing the number one root cause for most health issues. The second video had more of a focus on all natural self-care tips based on ancient wisdom, based on principles found with traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, Tai Chi Chuan, and Qigong. And now in this video, I want to focus on the concept of breaking free from the emotional drain game. So let's begin. Now, as an overview, as first steps or two essential practices for greater health, I always point out awareness and prevention are keys. They're very important. They're essentials. So awareness is going to bring about understanding, and through understanding brings about change. And that is so important because how would you know what practices for prevention to utilize if you weren't aware of health concerns that you wanted to focus on? And then the second part of this is prevention, and what I call real prevention, which is early prevention, as opposed to being reactionary. You know, many times today people are getting tests, blood tests, mammogram, have your prostate checked. Sometimes when you have these tests done, which we kind of think of as preventative, if a problem is spotted, it's usually advanced. It's kind of deep into the health, some kind of disease or health problem. And my interest and focus in my clinic with my patients, and even for myself and my family, is to try to discover really early on signs where I can place my efforts and my focus on prevention at an earlier stage. So being aware and then having good practices in prevention are going to put you on a greater path for optimal health. Now, in the first video, I did a larger overview of stress and the definition of stress, so you're going to want to check that out. But just to kind of simply define stress here, we're just going to refer to it as stagnation. There's an axiom in traditional Chinese medicine that says when qi or energy is flowing through the body, you're pain-free. There's generally no signs or symptoms. But when the energy is blocked, there is problems, there is pain, there is dysfunction. And when we are under stress, there tends to be a lot of stagnation that's affecting our energy. We have a sense of feeling like a pressure cooker, or we feel stuck. And we'll get into this a little bit more about feelings, but just to point that out, stress can be defined as stagnation within the body. The energy is blocked and it's just not flowing. And pain can be similar to stagnation, whereas when we feel pain, our energy is stuck, it's not flowing, and we need to figure out ways to treat ourselves to get that energy flowing again. Now, based on traditional Chinese medicine, one of the typical root causes to many health issues lies with emotions, with how we feel, and stress ties in with that. Modern day stress is often emotional stress, right? We usually have a couple of different kinds of stress. We think about physical stress or mental emotional stress. And what I'm talking about here is emotions, mental emotional health, and how that has a big influence on our health, how our body functions, and how we feel. So through awareness, through the essential practice of just being aware of how we feel, we want to identify draining emotional energy patterns. Okay, so we think about energy and how it flows through the body, and there are certain patterns that are associated with certain emotions, and they have debilitating influences on how our body functions. So let's talk about this more. So, have you noticed how you feel and how that has an impact on your health? Are there certain emotions that you tend to experience frequently? You know, emotions are just a part of us. They're normal, they're natural. But when they're excessive, when we experience a particular emotion too much, that's when things become unbalanced and then we have trouble health-wise. So I want to focus here on breaking free from the emotional drain game. This is the concept that I want you to understand and I want to talk about. And when we start to become aware of this and we take practices in prevention to restore our emotional balance, it can help us to get back to feeling like ourselves again. And that's very important. You know, emotions are very personal, right? When you express yourself and just in greetings, right? We say hello to each other. Hey, how you doing? And people will say, oh, good. Even though they may be feeling sad or angry or depressed, nobody comes out, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm feeling terrible. I feel depressed. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm angry. Awesome. Nobody talks like that, right? So I find it difficult sometimes talking about these things and also with my patients. And what I like to do is kind of look at emotions in a different way. So instead of talking about these personal emotions, I like to talk about emotions as more like energy patterns. Okay, and this again takes away that personalness, and I think it opens up the dialogue a little more, and people can express themselves a little more, and also understand themselves a little more, understand their emotions, and understand the emotions of others as well. So what I like to describe here is that qi is this traditional Chinese concept that translates into energy, or like vital life force would be probably a more fuller definition, something that penetrates all things. And also I want you to think about it as functional energy. Think about the energy within your body and how you feel. How are your energy levels? Do you feel your energy's high or low or irregular or sort of average? So you have a sense of this. You know how you feel. You can identify your energy through your feelings. And that's what we want to focus on here. Kind of understanding how we feel, understanding the emotions we feel, and in turn understanding how our qi or our functional energy is flowing within the body. When you're aware of how your qi flows, then you'll have a better assessment of how your health is, really. You can be aware of such energy patterns. So I think of qi as flowing in different directions. It could be rising, it could be sinking. Qi could be expanding or contracting, or qi can be just stuck, simply stagnant and stuck. So how do you feel when your energy is rising, sinking, expanding, contracting, or stuck? What emotions would you label those simple energy patterns? And we're going to get into this a little bit more. There's 7 particular emotions that I want to go into detail, how their energy patterns relate to how you feel, and how these energy patterns can affect the body. Now think about the emotion anger. How do you feel when you're angry? Is the emotion rising or sinking, contracting, expanding? Right? We generally associate anger with a rising sensation in the body. In traditional Chinese medicine, we sometimes will use the diagnosis of liver yang rising, something rising upward, and anger could be expressed. Anger is explosive and rising. There are other associated emotions to this pattern. Okay, resentment, irritability, repressed anger, that would be more like a stagnation. Frustration, rage, anxiety, depression, and animosity. So there is also an alternate imbalance with anger where there could be stagnation. So you could have a rising pattern of energy or a stagnating pattern of energy. That is a problem. It can cause trouble to your health, and it can dysregulate the function within your body, within your organs, particularly the liver. So the corrective therapeutic action would be to settle that rising feeling and to help relax and root the energy downward. The body regions that are influenced, I'll not go through all of them, but just to pick a few, their anger can influence the liver organ and the eyes. And the traditional Chinese medical function of the liver is to promote the smooth flow of qi. Qi, it's important to have qi flowing throughout the body smoothly. And emotions play a big role here in disrupting liver function. As you can see, the liver needs to function in a smooth way and distribute the qi in a smooth way. And emotions tend to disrupt any kind of smoothness, right? Redirecting the energy in different directions, different energy patterns. Typical symptoms of anger and this rising energy pattern showing in the body would be like sighing. Do you find yourself sighing a lot, particularly when you're angry? This is your lungs trying to open up and expand, and they're having trouble. And so you sigh, and it's kind of like a big breath that tries to break through that stagnation that's building up from perhaps repressed anger or frustration. Also, you may feel unable to take action because there's a stuck kind of feeling within the body. You may also be withholding feelings, difficult to express, holding in those feelings. Or you may find yourself complaining a lot if you're experiencing this sort of energy pattern. And also you could be indecisive, just having trouble making decisions. You feel stuck. You're not sure how to decide. Now, sadness as an emotion has a shrinking energy pattern. It weakens and consumes and dissolves our qi. It's a shrinking or collapsing pattern of qi. And related emotions to sadness are grief, melancholy, or depression. And the corrective therapeutic action would be to strengthen and to expand and to kind of fight against that shrinking of the qi. We want to expand qi. And we can see this naturally within lung function and breathing. When you feel sad, sometimes people will sob, right? And that breathing pattern when sobbing is a forceful inhale. You'll hear, right? Like a sucking in sound, because the energy is shrinking, and the natural effort or the active effort of the lungs is to expand when you're inhaling. And it's difficult to inhale when feeling sad because of that shrinking feeling. The lungs are shrinking up, and they want to expand when you inhale. So there's this kind of forceful inhale, this sobbing, to try to correct that and restore balance. And so we can see this. I find it very interesting. We can see this naturally occurring through that process of feeling sad. And the body regions that are influenced by the shrinking energy pattern are the lungs, as I mentioned, and the chest or upper torso. And the traditional Chinese medical function of the lungs is to help circulate qi, and it's also responsible for dispersing and descending qi. Dispersing and descending qi, very important functions that the lung has within the body. In traditional Chinese medicine, you may hear me use the singular lung to refer to the lungs. Sometimes we will talk about the lung system or the kidney system, although there's two organs, two lungs, two kidneys. There's one system in traditional Chinese medicine. So if that causes any confusion, I apologize, but that's the explanation. Now, sadness and shrinking, the typical symptoms of the body that are experienced are perhaps chest discomfort or a weak cough or a weak voice. Also, conditions like asthma can occur, and you may see a person that's dealing with sadness and the shrinking energy. Their energy is kind of moving away from the surface, and the surface can become more pale. So they may have more of a pale, bright face. And the obvious would be crying, right? Would be an obvious sign of sadness. Now, fear, the emotion of fear is a very powerful emotion. It has this sinking and draining energy pattern. Can be very debilitating. And the associated emotions would be depression or a lack of motivation. Sometimes it's described that way by people. Sometimes fear is a little too personal, and people might not come out and admit that they're fearful, but they may say that they're feeling kind of down, or they're feeling like they're just lacking motivation to do things, and there might have been a pattern of fear, just kind of draining their energy and then leaving them with a lack of motivation, with a lack of energy to do stuff. The imbalance here is a descending chi, which is draining right to the core of the body. When I think of the core, I think of the endocrine system, the adrenal glands, for example, and in regards to hormone production, it's a very powerful force within the body, and this could be very draining to that system and lead to a lot of debilitating health issues. So a person may feel disconnected or separated, or they may experience a great loss in their life that leaves them fearful and drained. This could turn into a chronic state when the perceived cause of fear cannot be directly addressed. It can become very chronic. The corrective therapeutic action would be to consolidate and root the chi, to strengthen the core, to strengthen particularly the endocrine system, and to deepen the root in the body, make the root strong. We talk about the root as the bottom part of the body or a deep part of the body within Tai Chi and Qigong, and that is an area that needs to be focused on and strengthened when there's fear or this kind of sinking and draining kind of energy. The body regions influenced would be the head, the heart, the kidneys, sometimes the bottom of the feet, the reproductive system, having babies, right? Very important systems there, very powerful systems that can be affected by fear. Again, I talked about the endocrine system, which has to do with particular glands that produce hormones in the body. And the traditional Chinese medical function of the kidneys, it determines the strength of the body. Very important. It's a very important system, a very core system. And it dominates growth and development. And there's also an action of receiving energy, and it helps the lungs with respiration. That's why you may also see asthma with this condition too, because there can be an indirect influence on the lungs, because the diminishment of energy within the kidney system can have an adverse effect on the lung system. You may see conditions of asthma where there is fear and sinking and draining energy patterns. Typical symptoms of fear in this sinking and draining energy pattern would be insomnia, difficulty sleeping, palpitations, feeling like your heart is racing or skipping a beat perhaps, funny feelings in the chest, also diarrhea and urination problems. Now, the emotion shock, which is a very strong feeling, sometimes can be a little confused with fear. And the way I would differentiate these two emotions is that shock is more of a sudden scattering of energy, whereas fear can kind of creep up on you and slowly drain your energy away. So shock is very something that's very sudden, probably very common with conditions like PTSD, right? A big trauma that occurs, something that's very sudden and quick and just scattering to your energy, very debilitating. So additional feelings would be frightened, feeling frightened, disordered, deranged, cannot settle, you feel chaotic, you feel things are unexpected or sudden, right? They just kind of surprise you in a very sudden and unexpected way, and it just scatters your energy. The imbalance here is it unsettles the chi, it decimates the chi, or suddenly scatters the chi. These are ways of describing this energy pattern. And the corrective therapeutic action would be to descend the chi and concentrate and root the chi down. Strengthen the core, strengthen your center. You know, our energy moves out from our center. And if our center is destroyed, if it's decimated, if it's unsettled, if it's scattered, then that energy can't move out from the center. It's like a giant river depending on that spring, that little tiny spring miles away to supply it with water. And it builds over time, and it pulls and builds and turns into this flowing river. And that's a good analogy of our energy. It begins in a very kind of small place and grows and pulls and starts to expand, and it starts to flow out very naturally. But what tends to happen in life, like say under stress, we demand too much energy. We place too much demand of energy on that source, and we drain it. We empty it out, and it becomes kind of like disconnected. Just like breaking the prime of a pump. You know, if you've ever tried to prime a pump, or say you tried to siphon some water with a tube out of a container, and you had to apply some suction, and you got the water flowing. Now that flow is like kind of like an analogy of good energy flowing within the body. But if something breaks that suction and disconnects, then the flow stops, right? So that's what shock can do to the body. It can really disconnect us from our source of energy, and it can be very debilitating, leaving us drained or empty inside or feeling decimated. So again, I made a note here, differing from fear, shock has a sudden, unexpected nature. Initially, shock affects the heart, but persistent long-term fright becomes conscious fear, and then this moves into the kidney system and really has debilitating influences on that system. And we refer to the endocrine system as more of the kidney system. In traditional Chinese medicine, we just use the term kidneys to describe the function, particularly of growth and development, and that has a lot to do with the endocrine system. The body regions influenced by shock would be the head, the face, the heart, the kidneys, and the low back. Sometimes people are drained of their energy and they have back pain. They don't realize that, they don't realize this energy pattern is going on. Sometimes people experience fear or shock, or sometimes they may feel depressed or drained, and they end up with back pain. And they don't realize what's going on. They don't realize the drain that's going on. But through awareness and practices in prevention, that can all turn around and change. Now, there are some typical symptoms also of shock. and this sudden scattering of energy, and that would be insomnia, palpitations where you feel funny feelings in the chest, PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder that sometimes our veterans go through, and others too also go through PTSD, people who experience trauma. Okay, the sudden impact of trauma can have a very debilitating effect on the body. If you have a symptom or a feeling of a deep sense of loss, there could be an influence of this kind of suddenly scattering of energy, the sudden scattering of energy or shock that has impacted the body in an adverse way. Also feeling separated. If you have issues where there's separation, it could be through perhaps divorce or through a death in the family, or just feeling like you're not able to connect with people or with what you're doing, that could have an adverse influence on your health. Also, if you feel like you're without a center, or you don't feel rooted, you don't feel stable, this can also have this kind of scattering, this negative scattering energy pattern. Now, as I mentioned with the emotion fear, shock also has an influence on the kidney system, and the traditional Chinese medical function, to repeat here again, is that it really deeply determines the strength of the body, the strength and health, and how the body functions. And it also has a dominating influence on growth and development, and how it receives energy, and how it helps the lungs to breathe and expand. And as an addition, shock also has an adverse influence on the heart. And within traditional Chinese medicine, the function of the heart includes a source of shen, or clear sight, how you see things, how you perceive things. And also there's a sense of spirit or consciousness. There's a sense of, your memory. Sometimes people, their heart energy is scattered, and they tend to have trouble remembering things. And we think about that as an imbalance within the heart system. Also, how you think and how you sleep. Memory, thinking, sleeping, clear sight. This ties in with this word shen, which sometimes is translated as spirit within the body. How's your spirit? How's your sight, your memory, your thinking, your mind, your mental emotional state, if you will? A lot of that is related to heart function within traditional Chinese medicine. Now, the emotion joy. Now, sometimes people would say, well, what's wrong with joy? And I remember first studying traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and pondering this for a long time. And basically, what we're meaning here is overexcitement. Sometimes when people are overexcited, there's a slow elevating of energy within the body, and it starts to scatter. Okay, it starts to spread out. So where, like in fear, there could be a sinking and scattering, joy has more of an elevating, a rising, slowly rising and scattering. And it's happening kind of slowly. I mean, there's this excitement happening, and the energy is just kind of moving outward. It takes energy to be excited, and that can drain you if that's happening. And so it may be a funny thing to think about, but think about conditions where maybe that could be draining to your energy, where it's just too overly exciting. Sometimes I think about recreational drugs, or just conditions in life that are just excessive. Maybe the idea of going to a party and just having fun all night and just being drained from that. But if it becomes abusive when it's excessive, right? When it's happening too much and it's draining to our energy and then leads to health issues. So additional feelings could be agitation. Okay, you feel agitated. That could be kind of a slowly elevating and scattering pattern of energy. Also mental restlessness. You have a hard time settling down mentally. Some people struggle with sleep with this issue. They're trying to go to sleep at night and they lay down to go to sleep, but their mind just doesn't settle down. Again, overexcitement, irritability, anxiety. Talkative could be a way to express this energy pattern as well. You see people who are talkative, they're always talking. They can't seem to regulate that well. The imbalance here, again, is a slowly elevating and scattering pattern, and the corrective therapeutic action would be to gently descend, to stabilize, center and consolidate the chi, and to strengthen the core. You know, I mention these corrective therapeutic actions because, first, if you are aware of an imbalance of excessive rising or sinking energy, the first step is to be aware, right? And then the second step would be, what do I do to correct it? And how can I prevent this from happening so it's not excessive, so it doesn't drain my energy and leave me in an unhealthy state where I'm chasing down issues of anxiety and depression, and then you end up with prescription drugs that just can make things even worse or leave you in a kind of brain fog where you don't really feel yourself. So that's what I'm trying to get you to think about here. First of all, you identify the pattern, the energy pattern, rising, sinking, expanding, contracting, and then think about what can I do to correct that pattern. So for example, if there's a sinking, kind of like depression can be sinking, and you think, I got to get myself out of this kind of depressive funk that I'm in. What can I do to reverse this sinking energy pattern? I feel a sinking in my body. Well, maybe watching some comedy on TV instead of some news program that's going to depress you, right? Or some movie that is kind of sad. Maybe something that's going to elevate your energy would be therapeutic. Something that's funny, makes you laugh, expands and elevates your energy. So this is what I'm trying to get you to think about. What can you do? What kind of natural practices can you do to reverse the energy? Be aware of the energy and then take measures to reverse that energy. So it's important to be aware of a negative energy pattern that's draining your energy and then taking corrective measures to try to prevent or to reverse that negative energy pattern. So back to joy and the negative energy pattern of overexcitement and how it is slowly elevating and scattering. The body regions influenced can be the heart, the face, the head, the chest. And some typical symptoms would be palpitations, funny feelings in the chest, feeling agitation, mental restlessness, as we talked about earlier. There can be anxiety, there can be insomnia. You can feel talkative, like the need to express and get something out. You feel like there's something excessive inside and you need to get it out. Those are some of the typical symptoms. In traditional Chinese medicine, sometimes you'll hear a reference that the mind is housed in the heart, or sometimes your spirit is housed in your heart. So this is a source of Shen, or clear sight. Think about, mental perception, a higher level of sight, okay? And also in regards to TCM, heart function, an important aspect is that it controls blood in the vessels, how it flows through the vessels. And when we talk about housing the mind, think about spirit, think about consciousness, think about your ability to remember, your memory. and your thinking, and also how the quality of your sleep. All of this is important under this function, under the TCM function of heart, and it can be influenced by overexcitement. And one quote from a classic textbook is that when one is excessively joyful, the spirit scatters and can no longer be stored. So there's a sort of draining and scattering effect that happens to the energy under this pattern of energy. Now, pensiveness, I want you to think about overthinking, right? Thinking too much. The mind is just spinning, thinking. This is pensiveness, right? And this has a knotted pattern, a stuck pattern to the energy. The energy just kind of goes around in circles and doesn't really go anywhere. It's kind of like a car up on blocks and the wheels are spinning, but there's nothing you're not going anywhere. Nothing's being produced. Nothing is being solved. The thinking is spinning around, but there's no conclusions, right? There's a concept within these principles of ancient wisdom from acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine that if you have a thought, you should bring it to a conclusion. It should come full circle. There should be a resolution to the thought. If not, you're wasting your mental energy. You're wasting your thinking. And you shouldn't have generated that thought to begin with. So when you do have these kind of random thoughts that come into your head, try to find ways to resolve them. And I think you'll experience a little more satisfaction, or you'll feel better with this, because resolving things need to come full circle. And when they do, there's a sense of accomplishment, right? If there's something going on that never ends, and there's no sense of accomplishment, you don't feel like that sense of like you've been rewarded. You're continuing to spin, and this can create anxiety and drain your energy. So we want to try to bring resolution. When you have a thought, you can always just think to yourself, well, I don't have a resolution to that thought, and I am going to just not think about it anymore. And that's a way to resolve that thought, even though you don't have a way to resolve it in the sense of, like, say there's a problem, you don't know how to resolve it. Just accept the fact that you can't resolve that. And if you have to get it out of your head, write it down. If it's a thing that you have to remember, write it down. But don't let it just spin around and go nowhere. So this is overthinking. This is ruminating. And this is also an idea of concentrating, which takes energy. But when we're kind of stuck in this pattern, it can be debilitating to our health. There could be some health issues that arise out of this. And the correct therapeutic action is to extend and spread the chi out to the extremities and bring resolution to that endless cycling of thinking, as I was describing. So the body regions that are influenced would be the spleen organ, the abdomen, the diaphragm, your center, the center of your body, and your mouth. And the traditional Chinese medical function, the organ that's influenced here is the spleen. And sometimes I translate that as the spleen pancreas, because we associate the spleen with having a digestive function, which in Western medicine it doesn't. So you have to kind of translate these things. But the function in TCM would be to transform and transport food into chi, or functional energy, and blood to nourish the body. Typical symptoms of pensiveness could be poor appetite, abdominal pain, loose stools, fatigue, a feeling of heaviness or bloating, tiredness after eating. So you see there's an effect on the digestive system greatly with this negative energy pattern. You could also feel weak limbs, You can have a sense of worrying a lot. Again, the mind is ruminating, it's just spinning. There could be obsessive compulsive thinking, or feelings, difficulty focusing or concentrating, and overeating. Okay, that's a big one here. Sometimes people have a lot on their mind, and to kind of like settle themselves down, they'll eat, and then this leads to weight gain and more health issues, and something we don't want. So we need to be aware of this and then take preventative measures, particularly with controlling our diet so that it doesn't adversely lead to lots of other health issues, right? Gaining weight, high blood pressure, diabetes, on and on and on with that kind of negative energy pattern. Now, whereas pensiveness can lead to a knotting or a stuckness of your energy, if we could use those terms, worry can be similar to pensiveness. There's kind of a round and round kind of ruminating of the mental thinking. You can also translate this as anxiety, but there's more of an elevating. There's a nodding of energy, but then there's a bit of elevating. So it elevates up and knots. So whereas we may think of pensiveness affecting the digestive system and maybe a little lower in the body, worry is going to affect a little higher area in the body, more in the chest, and that's where we tend to feel anxiety. In the chest, we'll feel stuffiness or tightness or a fullness, and there can be and again, an elevating and a nodding of energy. That's the type of energy pattern with worry or anxiety. The corrective therapeutic action would be to descend, to settle, and to root the chi, to encourage chi to spread out to the extremities. Sometimes it's stuck in the middle and it's not spreading out, and you may realize that because your hands and feet are always cold or they're numb and tingling. They don't get good circulation. Okay, additional patterns here would be to that it unsettles the chi. Again, I talked about elevating, but unsettling could be another way of describing this. You feel unsettled. Body regions affected by worry or anxiety would be the lung, the spleen, oftentimes the shoulders, the neck, and the upper torso and the chest particularly can be affected. Now, this particular emotion has an influence on two organ systems and two TCM important organ systems in the body, the lung and the spleen. So the TCM function of the lung, again, is to receive pure essence. We think of that as receiving sort of essence from the air that we breathe in. It helps to circulate chi, and it's responsible for dispersing and descending chi. The spleen function is an important function of transforming and transporting food or nourishment or chi and blood out to the body, out to the extremities. So when you have the lungs receiving air and then the digestive system receiving food, and the combination of those two kind of get put together and transformed into energy to support the functional aspects of our body. Two very important systems here, and worry and anxiety could be adversely debilitating. It could be very debilitating to these systems. Now, I hope I've raised some interest in looking at emotions in a different way as energy patterns, so that you could be more easily aware and understand them, and then try to look for ways to prevent them. I teach Tai Chi, I teach Qigong, I practice acupuncture and herbal medicine, I talk with my patients about diet and lifestyle, and all of these can be tools to help you with your health and with your emotions as well. And so when you notice an energy pattern that's rising, maybe eating spicy foods might not be a good choice. If you, conversely, if you notice that you're kind of low on energy, you may not be eating sufficiently to support your energy. There could be Qigong movements, body-wise, where it helps to open up the chest if you're experiencing a certain energy pattern that's constricting in the chest. Just giving some simple examples as to how you might look for certain preventative measures and practices to help you with this. And I've come up with a program that I think you'll find very interesting. It's a series of guided meditations, and I call it the 7 Emotions Guided Awareness Meditations program. This specifically pinpoints different emotions that you might be having or that you struggle with, like anxiety or depression. And it's a guided meditation. It's an audio track that you listen to, and it guides you through a meditation to help gain, rebalance, and restore your energy into a more proper flow. It's a great preventative tool. And I'm just beginning to roll this out, and this is sort of an introduction to these, and I'd love your feedback about this program. There are 7 audio tracks based on each emotion that we just detailed: worry, pensiveness, shock, sadness, joy, fear, anger, and obviously all the associated emotions or alternative ways to describe those emotions. If you feel like you have a connection with one of those emotions that you tend to experience often, and it could be unbalancing to your health, you may want to explore these guided meditations. Oftentimes, I see a lot of health issues based on a disconnect between the mind and the body. I've talked about this in the past, and it is very important, and if we can find tools that can kind of more deeply integrate that mind-body connection, I think we can experience greater health. And this is why I created this program, and I'm always looking to do more based on this kind of concept of mind-body connection. In the 7 Emotions Guided Awareness Meditations, what will be included is an introduction to that particular meditation. And then there'll also be a meditation outline. It'll outline the details of the meditation written on paper so that you can kind of visually go through it, because sometimes there may be parts of that meditation that you want to redo just kind of on your own without having to find it on the audio track, because each audio track is about 30 minutes long. But if you use the meditation outline, you'll be able to kind of review that section, recall it, remember it easy, and then practice it whenever you can. Sometimes the concepts or the practices in these meditations can be done anywhere, really. You could be driving a car and practicing a breathing technique that I talk about in the meditation. Or you could be somewhere at work and practice a simple body movement where you just kind of open up the chest a little more and just be conscious of that posture. And these are sort of things that I talk about in the meditations. There are breathing patterns. There are specific, just gentle, very simple body movements. There is guiding your energy mentally, which is very important. We always say the mind leads your energy. So putting your mind into your body and leading your energy through your body, whether it's rising or sinking, expanding, contracting. There is much talk about that within the meditations themselves. And so there's a lot of different aspects to these meditations that I've kind of gathered over the years through my practices with Qigong, Tai Chi, my own time that I spend meditating myself, using traditional concepts of meditation, even the principles of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. I tried to encapsulate a lot of different principles based on emotions and energy patterns, and incorporated them into these meditations, and I think they're going to work really well. I think you'll find them very interesting, and just another tool to put into your tool bag to help keep you on a better path for greater health, right? So also included with each individual meditation will be a tips sheet to give you tips on how to apply the meditation and get the most out of it. There's also a quiz, and you can go online to natureshealing.info, and at the very top you'll see a link that says online courses, product pages. You can click that and you'll see the 7 different meditations there, and you can click on those meditative products and read more about those meditations, and you can access the quiz from those pages. You'll also be able to access a sample audio track from those pages too, to give you a sense of what these guided meditations are going to be like. Also included is a body chart, because I make reference to specific acupuncture energy points and their locations on the body. You won't need the body chart when you're doing the meditation, because I try to describe as best I can where that point is located during the meditation. But if you want to have a reference to go back to, you can look at that body chart and that'll help you to remember where those acupuncture points are, those important energy points. And then there's the audio meditation itself. Like I say, they're about 30 minutes long. Some are a little bit longer. But that's all that's included when you purchase these products. Now, I want to thank you for listening in and joining us. And as a special thank you, I invite you to go check out the 7 Emotions meditations. There's a kind of a discounted special offer for the products. They're relatively inexpensive products that I think will be very helpful to discovering a little bit more about how emotions can affect you, how the negative energy patterns can be debilitating on your health, and how you can try to take preventative measures, again through awareness and prevention, to correct those energy patterns and make them less debilitating and find a higher level of health for you and your family and friends. You may want to spread the word and share this sort of thing. So again, I want to thank you for joining in, and I want to wish you the best in health. And if you need me, just reach out. Please leave a comment at the bottom of this page. I'd love to hear some feedback on your thoughts of this video. And I'm wishing you the best, and I wish and hope that you can find ways to take control of your health naturally.